What's shaking, bacon? In today's video, we're going to discuss what it was like when I experienced my heart attack. So before we get into today's video, I'm going to go over a brief update of what I'm doing right now. So I'm doing a new challenge in January, and it's 2 pounds of meat maximum a day. So with this 2 pounds of meat maximum, I'm allowed to have anything on the carnivore diet. I've even had an itty bitty little bit of cheese. And it's been going pretty well. I don't find any struggles day to day when it comes to my energy levels. Where I do feel the limitations of only 2 pounds of meat a day is when I go to do exercises. When I do my squats every day, I'm doing a squat challenge this month, I run out of stamina. That's what happens when you cut down from the amount of food you need, about 4 pounds of meat a day, down to half of that, 2 pounds of meat a day. It's a temporary challenge, so I'm fine with the fact that this is what's happening to me. But now we're gonna get into what it was like when I went through my heart attack. So back in November 2015, to set the stage, I had been dealing with gout for about 15 years by that point, and I was taking extra strength anti-inflammatories. Now they were steroid-based anti-inflammatories. It was Mobicox and Meloxicam. I was taking those to manage my inflammation because I had steady gout since 2013 and 14, since I lost a bunch of weight that winter. So I was taking these anti-inflammatories all the way through 2013, 14, 15. What I found out the hard way was in the end of 2015, steroid-based anti-inflammatories cause blood clots, and I had a major heart attack. So let's get into how heart attacks work. It's the exact same thing when you have a stroke or a heart attack. So an artery is blocked, and what's happening is that area of the heart is not getting any blood and oxygen. So if it happens with one of the peripheral arteries, so imagine a tree, imagine a branch on a tree. So you have the trunk, and then you have 3 or 4 big branches, and then they go to smaller and smaller branches. Those periphery branches at the very end, that's like what happens when you have a minor heart attack. You trim off one of those little branches at the end of a branch, a big long branch. Those leaves at the end of that branch aren't getting any nutrients anymore. So they're gonna die, they've been cut off. So that's what happens when you have a minor heart attack or a stroke. That little area is no longer getting any blood supply, and that area dies. Now, when you have a more serious heart attack or stroke, a blockage happens further up the branch. And the bigger the area, closer to the trunk, the bigger the heart attack or stroke. There's 2 arteries that feed the heart, the left and right coronary artery. The left one is the widowmaker. People normally don't walk away from those. My father had that when he was about 55. He had his first heart attack when he was 46, so it's in my family history. My father was not a big guy. He had a very active job. He did carpentry and renovations. Something you're gonna need to understand about me when I explain this story is I'm an extremely calm guy under pressure, even very, very intense, serious pressure. I was a bouncer for many years, for 7 years. I was also a head bouncer for about 4 of those years. And what happens is you get used to dealing with a crisis. And that's exactly what I did. When I had my heart attack, I just went into that calm mode, but there's something else you should know about me. I'm a goof. I will make the silliest joke in the worst situations. It's just my nature. It's a way of lightening the tension. Here's what happened. I'm a registered massage therapist. I was giving a massage. It was a Saturday night at 6 o'clock. I was the only one at the office with my client. I just finished moving a fireplace into my treatment room. It was an electric fireplace and a 5-foot long, heavy mantle. So I had just moved that in right before the massage, plugged it in. My client came in right afterwards, started giving him a massage. About 20 minutes into the massage, I started feeling this nausea. Now, I never get sick. I mean, almost never. I had the flu when I was 10 years old, and that was the last time I had the flu. I'm 47 years old now. So when that happened, I thought, oh man, is this the flu? And I had nausea that was probably a 4 or 5 on an intensity scale. It really was probably closer to a 4. I didn't feel like I needed to sit down or throw up or anything like that. We all think of movies when you have a heart attack. Somebody's standing there and then all of a sudden they clutch their chest and go, and they fall, and that's it. That's not often the way it is. It turns out most people when they have heart attacks, one of the biggest symptoms they have is nausea. So they just don't feel right. And that's exactly what happened to me. I also thought it might be food poisoning because I did have a chicken wrap just about a half hour before at a restaurant. After about another 10 minutes, I felt unilateral pressure right over here, just on the left side of my neck at the base. And I thought, okay, there's a pressure and a bit of discomfort. It's like an ache. And I thought, that's symptomatic of a heart attack. And then I felt the pressure go into my jaw, all in here. And I thought, that's not good. That doesn't bode well. And then I felt the pressure go out to my shoulder. And then I realized, yeah, that's a heart attack. I felt a burning sensation behind my sternum, just like somebody grabbed chili paste, made a solid defined line. My hands got cold and clammy, and I thought, okay, I have a pretty analytical mind. And the first thing I thought was, I'm having a heart attack. The second thing I thought immediately afterwards was, whoa, I've known quite a few people through the years, maybe a dozen, who thought they were having heart attacks. And it turned out they were panic attacks. I thought, okay, it's possible. I was going through a lot of stress at the time. I waited a few minutes. I thought, okay, it was time for me to sit down in the massage and work on the client's neck and shoulders. So as I did that, I thought, okay, we'll see if this goes away. After about another 5 minutes, it didn't die off. And keep in mind, my worst symptom in intensity was a 4 out of 10. I thought, okay, I think this might be a heart attack. So my client asked me to give him acupuncture. And I thought, okay, perfect. I'll go out and Google my symptoms after I put the needles in this guy. I put the needles in him and I went out into my office in the next room and I Googled my symptoms. Sure enough, I had like 8 of the 10 major symptoms of having a heart attack. I did not feel confined tightness in my chest and I felt nothing down my left arm. That's why there was some doubt, because those are the classic symptoms everyone looks for. I was fine. Those were not the issue with me, right? So that's why I thought there might be a possibility it's a panic attack. It's not my nature to do anything like that, but I couldn't rule it out because I haven't had either a heart attack or a panic attack. I sat there and I thought, okay, I'm having a heart attack. I got to get aspirin in me right away. I have to get nitro in me right away. I have to call 911. I had to call my wife, who at the time, and I have to get my clients out of here. So I sat there, thought about it all, what I needed to do, in what order, and then I just made sure I was calm, cool, and I thought, okay. So I dialed 911, but I didn't hit send. I went in, took the needles out of my client. I said, look, we're gonna have to make this quick. I gotta go right afterwards. Something came up. Now, this guy was a young guy. He was in his very early 20s, and he would not have been helpful in this situation. I knew this fellow. He would have panicked a little bit, and then I would have been taking care of myself and this guy. He would have just not handled it well. When I went out into the hallway, I dialed 911 after I took the needles out of the guy. I expected him to make it out really quick, be on his way, hopefully by the time the ambulance got there. The ambulance attendant rolled down the window after he pulled up in front of my office and said, did you call for an ambulance? And I said, yeah, I'm having a heart attack. Now, from his point of view, he sees this big guy standing there. He's looking calm. He's relaxed. He's walking around. And he said to me, okay, buddy, why don't you tell me why you think you're having a heart attack? Well, I explained all my symptoms and medical terminology. And that's when he sat there and went, okay, hop in. And he was really good. He was a really good guy. It was just very casual. It was very calm. Now, I was already relaxed, and I was joking back and forth with this guy the whole time. You know, we weren't doing a stand-up comedy routine or anything, but we were just, you know, little jokes here and there, keeping the atmosphere light. And he'd looked for my pulse. He couldn't find my pulse. He checked 3 times, and he couldn't find it. So he abandoned that and said, okay, we're hooking you up to a ECG. Hooked me right up, and he said, yeah, you're having a heart attack, all right. Fortunately, my massage therapy clinic was only 3 blocks away from the local hospital. So we went up there and they wheeled me in, and I had a team of doctors and nurses all working around me and giving me this and that, and aspirin and nitro, and they asked how my symptoms were, and they got down to about a 2 out of 10. It was pretty good. So in my city, there's no cardiologist. So they sent me to Hamilton General. And in Hamilton General, the first thing that happened when I went into the hospital, when they wheeled me in, was I asked if they're gonna give me open heart surgery or stents. And they said, no, you have one problem. We'll give open heart surgery if it's multiple problems. You just have one. So they said, we're gonna put a tube up your femoral artery in your leg, and then from there it's gonna go up to your heart, and that's how we're gonna do this procedure. Now, probably because I'm a really big guy, and I was even bigger then, I was closer to 400 pounds, what happened was they went up my wrist. And it was interesting. I was paying attention to this pressure going all the way up, and I was paying attention to what artery they were in at the time, and I felt it go across my chest, and then I felt it go right to my heart. And they did their job. They did a great job. If anything, I was annoying them because I was lying there and I'm just looking around, and while this is all going on, and I said, what do those numbers on that monitor mean? And I heard, Mr. Panucci, we're really trying to focus here. Could you just not talk? And I said, oh yeah, no problem. After a few minutes, I felt my sensations got worse. and they went up to about a 5 out of 10, maybe a 6 out of 10. And I was lying on the table and I said to them, this just got bad. It got more serious, probably at least what it was before. And they said, okay. And a few minutes passed and that went away. So I was lying there again and I was curious about this one other monitor. And the last thing I remember saying was, that monitor over there, what does the number mean on that monitor? Because I noticed that number changed when I felt my symptoms get worse. And last thing I heard was, could somebody put him to sleep? I woke up getting wheeled to my room after that. They did not want me to bother them through such a delicate procedure. So the first stent didn't take. They had to put another 2 in. And when I was in the hospital, my wife at the time came in with my sister and my father. The rest of the family was waiting out in the waiting room. My wife at the time said to me, you're going to be on 5 medications, 4 of which are going to be for the rest of your life. And I said, okay, like what are they? She said, well, she explained I had a 100% blockage in my right coronary artery. I knew exactly what that was. And I was surprised because I thought maybe I was having a minor heart attack. It turns out, this is important information, if you're overweight and you're possibly diabetic or pre-diabetic, your intensity of your symptoms are buffered and you don't feel the same intensity somebody else might. I can see how someone might push this off for a long time because their symptoms are so minor that they might just go home and try and sleep something like this off. I knew minutes counted. My wife said I was going to be on 2 blood thinners, one of which was aspirin. I went, okay. She said, you're going to be on cholesterol medication. And I thought, well, that's okay. I kind of expected that because I had high cholesterol for quite a while because I have hypothyroidism. And one of the side effects of that is high cholesterol. I said, okay. And she said, you're going to be on 2 blood pressure medications. And I was like, I'm not taking those. And my poor wife at the time was like, oh, and my sister turned and said, that's dad talking right there. And I said, I don't have high blood pressure. I've never had high blood pressure. Why would they put me on 2 blood pressure medications? No doctor would explain why they put me on 2 blood pressure medications. All the internists I spoke with afterwards, the doctors, the cardiologists at the hospital, none of them would explain it. They just put me on some stupid cookie cutter treatment plan of medications. It turned out later on when I went off my blood pressure meds with the supervision of my family doctor, because I told him I was going off it one way or another. And I knew once I said that, he'd have to make sure I did it safely because you can't just go off blood pressure meds. And you can have some very serious side effects from doing that. Oddly enough, I had high blood pressure from those blood pressure medications. I didn't have high blood pressure before that. After that, it took me a year or 2 to get my blood pressure managed. I did it through a carnivore diet. In fact, I got rid of all the symptoms I had that led me up to putting me into a high-risk category for a heart attack. And the big thing was treating my gout. I found out there's a link between metabolic syndrome and gout. And once I took care of that, I was able to do this carnivore diet. The reason why I was getting all these gout attacks was I was always trying to manage my weight and lose weight, and I was still addicted to carbs at the time. So I didn't cut out carbs for another few years after my heart attack, at least consistently anyway. I went back and forth between a zero-carb diet and a really bad diet. So I'm sure I caused a lot of damage to my arteries for the next few years after my heart attack. What made me actually make the big change was COVID. Having a history of heart problems and then COVID, finding out that it hit people that were overweight and diabetic, I thought, wow, it was the extra thing to make me go, no, I got to push through this. And I ended up taking care of all those other health problems, starting with my blood sugar. Even though carnivore balanced my blood sugar, it turned out I was having insulin resistance problems with the little blood sugar spikes I was getting from my regular carnivore diet. So once I took care of that, it was smooth sailing and I was able to do carnivore consistently afterwards. I've been doing carnivore all through 2021, and I did it for a long stint in 2020 and some shorter stints before that. But I was always stopping because I was getting plagued with these gout attacks and kidney stones from the gout. So because my kidney stones were brought on by uric acid crystals in the kidneys. So there I was. I left the hospital and I went home and I was just managing the symptoms. I wasn't tired. I wasn't weak like a kitten after my heart attack. I felt great. Other than pericarditis after the procedure, that was really why I was in the hospital for about 3 days afterwards, maybe 4 days, because that wasn't calming down after the procedure. It would come and go over the next few days after that heart attack. And that's the sac around the heart. It got inflamed. That was my heart attack experience. There's a few things I want you to walk away with from this video. If you're having a heart attack, stay calm. Try not to panic. Even if you're having breathing problems, you have to cool yourself down. My ex-wife said to me, they gave you something to calm you down. I said, no, they didn't give me anything. I was awake the whole time in the hospital. And she said, look, when I saw you in the hospital, you were really relaxed. You were out of it. And I said, I wasn't out of it. I was just staying calm. And she said, no, they gave you something. And I said, look, I was there the whole time. I heard everything they were saying, and I understood everything they were saying because I have a medical background. And they did not give me anything to calm me down. And I said, do you know why I was calm? And she said, why? And I said, because I was having a heart attack. Rule number one is stay calm. Another thing I want you to pay attention to is if you're around someone who's having a heart attack, you got to calm yourself down as well. If you're agitated and upset and nervous and scared, they're going to feed off of that. And you got to make sure that you're the calm one in the situation and you're keeping it chill. I've been in those situations with people who are having heart attacks. You don't want to make someone's situation more stressful on them and raise their blood pressure while they're having a heart attack. So it's not always easy to do. I have a lot of practice at staying calm in stressful situations. In fact, my friends were a little confused when I sent them texts from the hospital and I said, yeah, I just had a major heart attack. We're talking friends I've known for well over 25 years, 30 years by that point. And they were really surprised. And they said, because I was joking around with them by text, and they said, are you okay? And I said, yeah. And they said, are you on morphine or something? And I said, no, why? And they said, you're just like really jovial for someone who just had a heart attack. And I was like, yeah, you know why? Because I just survived a major heart attack. That's good news. That's something to be happy about, not gloomy where you're just feeling sorry for yourself. That's the worst thing you can do, is start feeling sorry for yourself in a situation. So yeah, I was in a really good mood. Everyone else was bummed out, but I was like, hey, this is great news. When I got pulled away from the hospital, as I was getting transported to the second hospital, I saw my ex-wife was standing there and she was starting to get really emotional because the last image she was seeing was me being wheeled away from her into an ambulance. So I said to the ambulance attendants at the time, I said, can I have a second with my wife? And they said, yeah, okay. And I called her over and I made a little joke and she laughed. And she was crying and she started laughing. I said, this is the ideal scenario in a crappy situation. This is a good news situation. I'm not in the middle of a walk in the middle of some nature park where I'd have to get airlifted out. I'm around medical professionals, medical equipment. I'm being taken to a specialist and I'm having a procedure done. This is the best case scenario here. This is something you should be feeling optimistic over. So I wasn't lying there weak as a kitten or anything like that. I was really calm, but people have to put things into perspective, right? You can't get caught up in the sadness of the moment. It's really important to stop and assess the situation. They teach you that when you take a first aid course. A little bit of time prioritizing and figuring out the dynamics of the situation can really help in a time like this when minutes count. It makes more sense sometimes to spend a minute or two figuring things out, and the order you should follow through with that list you've just made in your head. Spending that extra little bit of time at that moment can save you from making a blunder further down that can cost you something very serious. It sounds like an unrealistic thing to do in a stressful situation, but that's the way you gotta think. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks a lot for watching. Take care.